You ever meet someone who's not the type to lie? My cousin Nate is one of them. He's in the Coast Guard, has been for over 10 years. Practical guy, not superstitious, not dramatic, just boats, routine, and black coffee. So when he told me this story in the summer of 2022, I listened, and I asked him to tell it again, not because I didn't believe him, but because I wanted to be sure I heard it right. He never changed a single detail. It happened in 2017. Nate was assigned to a maintenance rotation on a lighthouse called Matinus Rock, somewhere way off the coast of Maine. You won't find it in travel brochures. It's just a jagged chunk of rock in the ocean. No docks, no houses, just a single lighthouse and a rusted auxiliary shed. No power grid, no plumbing, barely any cell signal. You can only get there by boat or helicopter. The lighthouse itself is automated, but someone has to go out every now and then, clean the corrosion, refill the generator, check the gears. Usually it's a one-man assignment, but the year before, there'd been electrical anomalies. So this time, they sent two, Nate and a guy named Russell. The first 3 days were uneventful, windy, cold, boring. Fix this, tighten that, scrape off sea salt, sleep in shifts, eat canned food, play cards, repeat. But on the fourth night, something changed. Nate woke around 2 a.m., not because of a sound, not even a nightmare, just a feeling, like something was wrong. He said the air felt thick, like right before a thunderstorm, but the sky outside, clear, dead silent. He sat up, confused, looked around, and that's when he noticed something. There was no light. The beacon, the massive rotating light that's supposed to sweep the ocean every few seconds, wasn't moving. That's a big deal. He shook Russell awake, and they climbed the narrow spiral staircase together up to the beacon room. The gears were moving, but the light itself, jammed. Something was wedged deep inside the rotating assembly. They pried it out, a large, soaking wet blanket of some kind, covered in slime, moss, and smelling like rotting seaweed. It didn't make sense. The doors had been locked, the windows sealed. No birds, no wind, no one else. They tossed the cloth outside. Maybe a weird fluke. Tried to laugh it off, but they didn't laugh the next night, because it happened again. Same time, 2 a.m., same failure. The light wasn't rotating. Different fabric. This time, it was red, a shawl or scarf, frayed at the ends, wet like it had been pulled from the bottom of the sea. Tiny crustaceans clung to it like they hadn't been exposed to air in decades. That's when Nate said the mood shifted. It wasn't just creepy. It felt intentional. Oh, they double-checked everything. Doors, locks, vents. Nothing out of place. So they started blocking the stairwell with crates at night. After the final check upstairs, they locked the beacon room. They even barred the bedroom door and slept with knives under their pillows. Still, the lighthouse wasn't done with them. On the 7th night, Nate woke again, not to silence, but to whispering. Russell was murmuring in the dark, facing the corner of the room. Nate sat up and asked who he was talking to. Russell blinked slowly, confused, said he wasn't talking to anyone, but something in his eyes was different. That same night, Nate found Russell standing at the window, staring out at the rocks. When asked what he was doing, Russell said, "I think someone was out there last night, standing on the rocks, watching us, then gone when the light turned." After that, Russell changed. He stopped sleeping, stopped talking, just stared out the window all night, every night. He muttered things about noises in the walls, about voices in the stairwell. Nate tried to shake him out of it, tried to keep control. But on the 9th night, both of them heard it. Footsteps, coming down the spiral stairs. Not creaks, not echoes. Footsteps, deliberate, slow, heavy. Nate looked at Russell. He was already standing at the base of the stairwell, eyes wide, frozen. "You go up there?" Nate asked. Russell shook his head. "Did you?" "No." They both knew. Neither of them moved. And the footsteps just stopped. By the 11th night, they were done. When the beacon failed again, they sprinted up, only to find the beacon room door wide open, blown open. Inside, the bulb, a massive industrial-grade light, had been unscrewed from its socket and placed upright in the middle of the room. That thing takes tools to remove. It doesn't just twist out. As Nate stared at it, he felt something brush against his back. Cold, wet, software. He turned. Nothing there. But Russell had gone pale, pointing at the wall, whispering, "It reached out." There was a hand. From inside the bricks. They locked themselves in their room. Didn't sleep. Russell rocked in the corner, whispering to something that wasn't there. At dawn, Nate used the emergency sat phone, requested a mechanical emergency pickup. But when the crew arrived that afternoon, they asked a question that still haunts him. "Why'd you call us at 2:12 a.m.? Nate blinked. "I didn't." "Yeah, we got a call." Static, mostly. Then a voice said, "There's someone here with us," and it cut out. Nate hadn't touched the phone until morning. Russell quit the Coast Guard a few months later. He never told anyone what happened, and Nate, he still does lighthouse duty sometimes. But he says one thing: "I'm never going back to Matinus Rock. Not ever." It was during peak lockdown. You remember the feeling, right? That slow itch under the skin, when days blurred and nights dragged, when your house became too small, and your mind too loud. That's when I met Sophia. Online, of course. Instagram, Tinder, whichever came first. We lived just 5 minutes apart in Suffolk County, Long Island. Close enough to meet, far enough for mystery. She called herself Soph, the kind of girl who spells her name with an F instead of a PH. Cool, sharp, reckless in the way that made you want to follow her into trouble. One Tuesday night, out of pure boredom, she said, "Let's go to Montauk. Ever been to the lighthouse after dark?" I paused. Technically, it was closed. Probably even illegal during lockdown. But the way she said it, like it wasn't the first time. So we drove east, past the quiet roads, past the closed gas stations, into that strange nothingness where the sky presses low and the world narrows into headlights. We parked directly in the lighthouse lot. Empty. No security car, no other headlights. Just the beam of the lighthouse slicing through the fog above. It felt abandoned. It felt wrong. But she smiled, handed me a white claw, said, "You worry too much." We walked around the back, away from the lit entrance, to the cliff walk. It's a rocky trail that hugs the edge of the bluff, waves crashing below, lighthouse behind, darkness all around. There were no guide lights that night, no security lamps, just our phones and the pulse of that beacon, slicing the dark every 30 seconds. We laughed, talked, stepped carefully between loose rocks, and then she stopped. "Did you hear that?" I turned. She wasn't looking at me. She was pointing her flashlight back. And that's when we saw him, a man, standing behind us on the trail, maybe 30 feet away, coat, hood up, face shadowed, still as stone. At first I thought, security guard, busted, caught. So I called out, "Sorry, we're just leaving." No response. He didn't move, just stood there. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Y'all want to buy some Coke?" It was like getting pulled out of one fear and dropped into another. Not a guard, not someone who belonged here, just a man, alone, in the dark, with a question he didn't need to ask. I shook my head. Nah, man, we're good. Turned to Soph, mouthed, keep walking. We did, but so did he. Every time I glanced back, he was there. Same distance, same pace, silent. It wasn't a chase, but it wasn't harmless. The rocks beneath our feet suddenly felt louder, the shadows longer. We pressed forward, heartbeat picking up, minds racing ahead. And then came the second surprise. Two more men, emerging from the left, behind the grass near the cliff's edge. No words, just walking, toward us. The three of them moved as if they knew the rhythm, like they'd done this before. I didn't want to run. Running meant panic. Panic meant chase. So I whispered, straight to the car. No talking. We moved together, side by side, fast, focused, but they were faster. By the time we reached the car, they were right behind us. We both screamed as we slammed the doors shut. And then came the rattling. Door handles shaking, fists pounding. I hit reverse, didn't care who was behind. Just backed away, tires slipping on gravel. They hit the side of the car, kicked it hard, but they didn't follow us when we pulled away. We didn't talk much on the ride home, just silence and our own breathing, the kind of silence that stays even after the sound fades. We met again after that night, hung out. But neither of us ever went back to that lighthouse. Some places aren't haunted by ghosts, just people. And sometimes, that's worse. His name was Ian, not a storyteller, not the dramatic type, the kind of man who didn't say much, unless it was worth hearing. He was in his 50s, solid build, sun-darkened skin, and the kind of calm that only comes from decades working at sea. He'd fixed lighthouses, repaired underwater pipelines, salvaged wrecks, and inspected old structures for the state. So when he said, "There's one job I'll never forget," I listened. It was 2013. He'd been hired by a small coastal county in Washington to inspect a decommissioned lighthouse on a rock island, an hour offshore, unnamed on most maps. Developers wanted to tear it down. Historians wanted to save it. No one wanted to pay for it. So they sent Ian, one man, 4 days, a sleeping bag, tools, clipboard, and a two-way marine radio. Routine. He was dropped off by a small boat on a narrow stone ledge. No dock, no welcome sign, just wind, salt, and rusted metal. The lighthouse stood tall, maybe 50 feet. Early 1900s build. Spiral staircase inside. Beacon glass cracked but intact. Everything else, silent, still. That first night was uneventful. He slept on the ground floor, near the generator room. It was warmer there, less wind, less open. He remembered how quiet it was. Too quiet, he said. No birds, no bugs, no waves slapping the rocks. Just wind, whisper soft. On the second day, the fog rolled in, thick. He woke to a white wall outside the window. Visibility, less than 5 feet. But fog wasn't new. Not here. He kept working. That's when he noticed the first thing. Halfway up the spiral stairs was a small maintenance closet. On day one, it wouldn't open. Rusted shut. But today, it was cracked open. Just an inch. Inside, in the darkness, was a wooden box, about the size of a lunchbox, covered in wet green moss, like it had been pulled from a riverbed. He didn't touch it, just noted it, and closed the door. That night, around 1:30 a.m., he woke, but not to noise, to the absence of it. No wind, no creaks, not even his own breath for a moment. And then he heard it, footsteps, on the metal stairs. not coming down, going up. He froze. No one else was there. He waited, flashlight aimed at the stairwell, but nothing ever came. Next morning, he searched every room, every level, even the roof. Nothing. No animals, no people. Except the box. It had moved. Now it was sitting outside the closet, halfway into the stairwell, still moss-covered, still nailed shut. He picked it up. It was heavy, bloated with water, cold to the touch. He didn't try to open it. He just set it near the entrance and stepped outside for air. That's when he saw them. Footprints, bare, human, wet. 12 impressions in the mud, leading from the side of the building to the edge of the cliff, and then stopping. No return prints, no drag marks, just a clean end. As if someone had walked into the air and disappeared. Ian considered calling for an early pickup, but the fog was thick, too thick. No boat would make it, so he went back inside, locked every door, wedged the stairwell shut with a steel pipe, and waited. That night was the worst. Around 1:30 a.m., he heard the beacon room door slam. Loud, violent, like something massive had hit it. Then knocking, not on the door, on the inner wall, from inside the bricks. 3 slow taps. Ian didn't move, didn't breathe. Eventually silence returned, but sleep did not. In the morning, the box was gone, the closet door wide open. He didn't look inside again. He grabbed his radio, reported a medical issue, and requested immediate extraction. They said they'd try, but the fog hadn't lifted. They couldn't promise anything soon. He waited on the landing ledge for 7 hours. The fog grew thicker, and then he heard it, gravel shifting behind him, soft footsteps near the base of the lighthouse. He turned. Nothing. Or maybe he just couldn't see what was there. He stood at the edge of the cliff, gripping his bag tight, heart racing, ears ringing. Only when he heard the distant boat horn did he feel like he could breathe again. When they pulled him aboard, the deckhand looked at him and asked, "You all right? You look like you saw a ghost." Ian didn't respond. Not really. He filed his report, structure unsafe, recommended no restoration, said the foundation was compromised. He never mentioned the box, never wrote about the footsteps, never said anything about the knocking. A year later, he retired. No big announcement, no injuries, just said he wanted to stay on dry land. When I asked if it was because of the lighthouse, he just shrugged. And then he said, "Some places don't want to be opened. They just need time and silence. That's all." I tried to look into it later, but there are no records, no name on the lighthouse, no listed structure at the coordinates, like it was never really there. And maybe it wasn't.